is something that you are mitzvah. It's something that you command. Why is the person giving the bracha commanded? Because he's standing above and higher than the bracha, than the thing, and therefore he can manipulate it. Feel is something that you are below, and because of that, you don't have to be of anyone of significance, etc., to be able to daven. If you're higher, you're in a level of tefillah. Uh, Anybody can daven. Anybody can approach David. It's tefillah oni. Sometimes even a poor, someone who's poor spiritually, etc., he can have the idea of tefillah even more so, um, even more so than tefillah's usher, the level of tefillah Moshe. Um, Rach, on the other hand, is that I am higher than the root of the thing. I'm higher than the source of the thing, and I'm drawing it down from its source. Like it says by Yaakov, Ish Kibchase Shaber Choisam, that he benched them according to their bracha, meaning according to whatever their source above indicated that they were connected with and should have come down to them. So now, then he also said that that's the mila of bracha over davening. But the mila of davening, tefillah over bracha, is that tefillah creates an entirely new will. That's why we say Yehi Ratz. Bracha can only deal with whatever is in the source. And being that can deal only what's in the source, if it's not in the source, you can't change it. So Menashe and Ephraim, we said, Menashe's source was of a lesser stature, that Ephraim will be greater than Menashe, so it wouldn't have helped that Yaakov should give a bracha that Menashe should be greater. There's nothing that he could change about it. He can only do it what he can only work with what's there in the source, and the bracha just causes that there shouldn't be any obstacles and limitations in it coming down all the way to this world. But if it's not there, he can't create it. He writes in davening, you should make a will, can completely make an entirely new will, something that's not there in the source. You can go the opposite of what was there initially, and that is like we find by Moshe Rabbeinu, that he davened for the Yidden who were Hashem wanted to destroy after the Chet Egel to save them, and his change around the will from one opposite to another. So now the Rebbe is going to connect this idea about tefillah creating a will by Hashem with another expression that we find by Chazal. Ois Gimel. Bezo Gam Inyan Oisen Ritzon Shel Malkim. This is also the inner meaning of when the Chazal use the term doing or making the will of Hashem. The simple meaning when the Chazal say Oisen Ritzon Shel Malkim is that they are fulfilling Hashem's will. So, for example, it will say the difference between the first parsha of Krishma and the second parsha of Krishma is first parsha of Krishma, we're only talking about what we're doing right. It's called Oisim Ritzon Shel Malkim, the Chazal say. We are fulfilling Hashem's will. Second parsha of Krishma, it doesn't only speak about what we're doing right, it sometimes says what happens if we don't do what we're supposed to do. And the Chazal call it Ein Oisim Ritzon Shel Malkim. But there's a lot of ways that the Chazal could have used the idea of describing are doing Torah mitzvahs or not. Could have been Mekayim mitzvahs, we fulfill mitzvahs, etc., etc. Oisin Ritzon Shel Malkim, in a literal sense, means we are creating the will of Hashem. That is the deeper meaning, according to Chassidus, of Oisin Ritzon Shel Malkim, in light of what we said before, that Yehi Ratzon, that davening can create a new will by Hashem. I know line 11, Bnei Yisrael Oisin Upoil Yidden to enough Ritzon Shel Malkim Yidden affect and accomplish. They make the will of Hashem. And this, there's also the exact expression that they make the will of Hashem. For Chassidus, like it's explained in Chassidus, another deeper idea of Oisin. Ois is also Shumaloshin Kfia. The word oisa is not only make or create something, but it's also when forcing something, then it's also used the word oisa. Where do we find that? There's an expression that the Chazal say when they want to say that there's mitzvahs that a person can be forced to do. So we use the expression, the Chazal used the expression me'asin. One can be forced for mitzvahs. So we see that the word oisin could not just be meaning making and creating, but it can mean coercion. We're forcing. We are forcing the will of the Creator. What does it mean? This means to say, Shaydate philosophy through the davening. He metaphorically is speaking, he is forcing and coercing the will of Hashem. That's the idea that says Hashem can decree something, and the tzaddik nullifies that decree. Tzaddik Geyser HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, or the other way around, the tzaddik can decree something, and not the other way around, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, Hashem fulfills the decree of the tzaddik. What does that mean? That when you examine this language, you see it's not it doesn't say that tzaddik says or requests, etc. Al tzaddik geyser, but tzaddik decrees, specifically in a way, in a manner of stating it as a decree, like a king orders his populace. When does the term decree apply? If it should have been in a different way. And then the king has to come out and say, I decree this is the way it's going to be done. And there's also no rational reason for this, and that's why it's called a decree. The imloy came because if not so, if there is a rational reason for this decree, so it can be explained rationally that this should be done. Why do you have to decree it? Any rational being will accept this. Despite the fact that we're talking here about something that is against what should have been and against rational reasoning, so we say that the tzaddik is geyser. The tzaddik affects whatever the matter is that he decrees, but in a way of decree. So that's one example of a Maimer Chazal where we see this idea of coercing Hashem. We are coercing the will of Hashem. Similar to what says the story in the Gemara, that Hashem smiled and said, defeat me, my children, defeat me. In other words, over there was a different story where there was an argument between two individuals in the Gemara, and in Hashemayim they intervened to show all types of miracles according to one opinion, and the other opinion said, Torah Torah is not in the heavens, it's only the people can say the Torah, it's not something for Hashem to decree. So he says, again, what do we see? And Hashem responded, yes, defeat me, meaning that Hashem accepted and received and became the one that was coerced to follow the opinion of Chachamim. This means to say, Shazo Inyan top of page Chaf. This is, in a way, metaphorically speaking, like a war. And Hashem says, defeat me, like in a war. There are two combatants. And Hashem is saying, defeat me, my children. And he smiles from that. So we see the idea of gzeira and coercion and oisim retzayim shema. It's known to teach in the Mizikr Magid. What is it called that they are making and creating the will of Hashem, which the Chazal already identified with the first parsha of Krishma. But what is it? What is the making of the will of Hashem? in the ordinary sense, they are doing the right thing versus not doing the right thing. That's the simple pshat in the Gemara. But when we talk about the pshat in the Gemara, that when we talk about not making up the will of Hashem, we're talking about, I'm sorry, not fulfilling the will of Hashem, but we're talking about something else. We're talking about creating a will of Hashem. So what does that have to do with the first part of Krishma? So the Mizrishim Maggid says this has to do with what it says, B'chol Maidach, that because it says with all your might, that when the person does his avodah in such a way of above and over the top, in a way of going in a way of bligvul, so then he's creating a new will by Hashem. So the Rebbe says, great people could be ois netzon shalmakim. So the Rebbe continues, line 4, since every single year is obligated in reading Kriyas Shema Shizel. It's not just a command, but also a promise. It should be you should love all your heart, with all your soul, with all your ma'od. So the word V'ahavta, Chassidus says, brings down, can be translated as a command. You have a mitzvah to love, and also it's also a promise. You will love. So every Yid is told, you will love Hashem in the highest level, even in Chol Meidach. That's the idea of the level that they make up the will of Hashem. Therefore, how they move, and so therefore it's understood. It's by every single Yid. It's applicable, the idea of making the will of Hashem, and to effect a new will above, and not just that. And afterwards, to effect this should come down below as well. We can connect this idea of making up the will of Hashem with what we learned in the previous mind, that it says, you shall make the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Why does it use the term you shall make? You remember us making up the will of Hashem and making the Yom Tov of Shavuos. We asked, why does it say over here the expression of making is specifically, even more so? The indication of the expression you shall make the Yom Tov Shavuos is as if we are creating the Yom Tov of Shavuos, as if the Yom Tov of Shavuos doesn't exist without us. What do you mean we're making it? There's the Yom Tov of Shavuos, and that we have to fulfill the obligations that we have on that Yom. Another question is, why does it say Chag Shavuos, Yom Tov weeks, and not the Yom Tov of weeks? Not the Chag HaShavuos. David Shavuos should never count. Quite much never possible. Shiva Shavuos Tisparlah, when it says Vasisa Chag Shavuos, it's referring back to what it says in the pasuk prior to this. Shiva Shavuos Tisparlah. You should count 7 weeks. Hainu, this means Shehem HaShavuos HaYiduim. We're referring back to those known Shavuos. The Hey is called the Hey Hayadiyah. It's the definitive article. It's something that's known. You're referring back to what it says earlier. Therefore, it should have said, you shall make the Yom Tov of the weeks that we spoke about before. So why does it say Vasisa Chag Shavuos instead of saying Vasisa Chag HaShavuos? Because referring back to what we said earlier in the pasuk, the weeks. It's Bar Bazel was explained about this. After the 7 weeks of Sfir Saim that we count with our mouths, we speak out the count, and we make a bracha before. So then we also have, and you will count 50 days. Even though when it says you shall count 50 days, it uses the word count. You shall count. Still, no, we don't count the 50th day. So why do we say you shall count if it's not actually counted like the other 49 days when we actually say it in with our words and with a bracha. But why do we say Tisperu Chamishim Yom if there's no actual count of day number 50? Elazel Kefi Shaboim Tvitish Yom Klulim Yom Chamishim Kap Fishkaf Aleph. The count of the 50th day, Tisperu Chamishim Yom, is referring to the way the 49 days are all included in the 50th day. In other words, it's referring to the 50th gate after you go through the 49 levels, the 49 gates of Bina. So you have the 50th gate. The 50th gate is something incomparably higher because the level of the 50th gate of Bina reaches all the way up to Kes, the level of a crown, the level that's transcendent and encompassing. Shalom call say that Ishtalshlus is beyond the entire chain order of descent. Here we can explain what the Mefarish on the Zohar says, why it says that you shall make Shavuos, not Hashavuos, because it's not referring to those weeks. Those weeks that we have is not the same weeks of Shavuos. Why? And that's why I can't say the weeks that we were talking about before. It's not those weeks. It's not the weeks that were mentioned that we counted. On Shavuos, where we have the culmination of the 49 days, where they're elevated into the 50th level, all the way up into the level of Kesser. It's entirely new weeks. It's entirely new sets of 7 times 7, not the 7 times 7 that we counted. So that's why it's a new level of weeks. So it doesn't say Hashavuos, referring back to the previous week. That's why it says she'll make Chag Shavuos. This means even the most highest level of the Yom Tov Shavuos. If it would only be the lower level of Shavuos, the weeks are something that we do participate in, so then maybe it makes more sense that we will make. The point is, even that level that's higher and beyond those weeks, and cannot even be called the Hashavuos, it's not the same weeks like before. Even that, Shushara Chamishim, that's the 50th gate. Niflai the avoidance on the is affected through the avoid of a person, you shall make it. Where it says you shall make Chag Shavuos to Havaya your God. Similar to what the Chazal say. You shall do them. So the Chazal translate and say, read it as if it says Vasisem Atem, that you make it up, you create me. But that Mailani Aleichem ki ilu asauni, I consider it when you do the mitzvahs as if you made me. Al derech mashu kosav Rabba Magid al Pasuk Martim Goymer Ashi Yasoisim Hotem Bachai Bahem. Similar to what Mezrish Magid says, you shall observe that the person will do the mitzvahs and the person will live in them. What does it mean, will live in them? So the Mezrish Magid says, not that the person will live, but he draws down chayis into and through the mitzvahs. That the person, when he does the mitzvah, he is drawing down life force and vitality in the mitzvah. That's the same thing. In a similar vein, it says over here, you shall make a Yom Tov Shavuos for Havaya Lekecha. Havaya Lekecha im Ze'er Ampinu Malchus. The level of Havaya Lekecha, that is, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is going on the Midas and Spheres of Atzilus in general, and Lekecha Shem Elokim, that's already protective and covering over and limitations, that's going on Malchus. You have to make Shavuos to Havaya Lekecha. Yid makes Shavuos, draws down from Keser, Shara Chamishim, into Zoin Malchus. Keser, Lazer Ampinu Malchus has to draw down the level of Keser to the Midas and Malchus. Change Allah Akash Magil, Shara Chamishim, Hadeu Mamshuk Zalar Boim Betesha Spiris Mechesha Bechesed, but Malchus, just like when he reaches the 50th gate, he imbues all the other levels of the 7 times 7. From Chesed to Bechesed until Malchus, he imbues them with the 50th gate. the same thing. Vasisa Chag Shavuos La'avai Lekecha. You draw down the level of the Shara Chamishim, level of Keser into Zeir Ampin Omal. Now we're going to go also to what we spoke about in the previous mind. Again, another detail. Because of line 24, it continues in the pasuk, Misas Nidvas Yad Chagoyim, the measure of the giving of your hand. Ainush Avidasai Hiba'ofen Shel Vitur. That we said that the Chazal learned out from it that a person should give in a superlative way over the top. Valisha Medidas Vagbolos without any boundaries and limitations. We should call up Panim Yafis, like the Panim Yafis commentary writes. Now the Rebbe says on the top of Perikam Beis, the Panim Yafis is Talmud HaMagid. He is one of the students, one of the disciples of the Mezritcher Magid. And what the Panim Yafis says, even though the Rebbe is like saying, why am I bringing him down the Maimon Chassidus? So he says, that even the Panim Yafis, which is, I guess, not usually associated with that much Chassidus and Kabbalah, still in all, it is brought down from time to time in Mamori Chassidus. So we see the concept as follows. He says the level of Vitur, this idea of going above and beyond, is the same idea of Keser. Just like in myself, I'm going beyond my limitations. Keser is also the level of higher limitations. So Misas Nidvas Yodcha is a level of drawing down of Keser, the 50th gate, the level of Shavuos. It all connects. Ma'ilum did this Vagbolas beyond measure and boundaries. Umedayik Nidvas Yodcha v'loy Nidvas Libcham. And the pasuk says exactly the term, the donation of your hand, and not the donation of your heart, as we were emphasizing also in the previous moment we were talking about. This is to indicate and to teach us that it comes down very much below. It permeates even the physical hand. We said, like his physical hand, we said in the previous mimer, is not an independent entity, but its entire purpose and existence is felt as a means for tzedakah. Another idea behind this Misas Nidvas Yodcha. Why does it say specifically hand and not heart, the donation of the hand? Well, the Rebbe says another idea behind this is the Davka, the Misas Nidvas Yodcha, only through the measure and the giving of your hand. In the Chag HaShavuos, do we affect the idea of the Yom Tov of Shavuos? Similar to what's explained in the Gemara. When the Malachim wanted that the Torah should be given above, Moshe told them, you can't get the Torah, that you then go down to Mitzrayim. Do you then have a Yetzirah? So what do we see from that? That it's to us that we deal with Mitzrayim, we deal with Yetzirah. How do we deal with it? Initially, there's the idea of only subjugating, sublimating the klippas that are Yetzirah. Just so much Mitzrayim Kiborach doing this coffee. That's the idea that it says when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, that the nation ran away. Why did they have to run away? Because, like Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, because the Nefesh Bahamis was still in their full force. And that's the idea of Iskafia. They were going against their Nefesh Bahamis. And from afterward, by going through Iskafia, they came to the level of Ishapchem. The Dafke only in such a way can it be the preparation for Matan Torah. So that's the idea, that it has to be in a way of Misas Nidvas Yodcha, that it's supposed to even be and permeate the physical hand, because it should be in a way of Ishapche. Even the most physical and even the most external has to be impacted by this experience. Now he's going to bring this back to the concept and the difference that we were speaking about, davening versus brach. Says hey, line 16. Though the quality and advantage of davening is great, that because through it we affect above a new will of Hashem. We make the will of above. This is still insufficient. Until the hashpah comes down here below. There could be different things that could occur, different events, in other words, that could block the hashpah. We said that the bracha is about making sure that it comes down and it comes down quickly and no obstacles stand in its way, even though it's in the shortish, but now it has to come down. The bracha needs to bring it down. The happening, on the other hand, even though it brings up to such a high level, but things can get stuck in between. Like we find by Shlomo Melech, even though Shlomo Melech was meant to be a king, there are different things have to go through in the history until he could actually be a king, and there was different like challenges to who's going to be, taking the place of David HaMelech and so on. So we see, even though there was the idea of the idea of that Shlomo HaMelech was promised to be the king, still in Nob and Yod and Yehoyada have to say Amen, Kain Yemar Hashem, like he says on the side of in the commentary, be able to ensure and to speed it down and make sure that it doesn't get in the obstacle stuck in the middle of the road. Well, that might just borrow the being like his Chag similar to what's explained previously concerning you shall make the Yom Tov Shavuos. Even after we effect, you shall make the idea of the Yom Tov Shavuos. Aims of Maspadain is still insufficient. But Tzarech Lifel Shetiam Shachal Avayla Kecha, we need effect that should be the drawing down to Havayir God. And that's why, going back to that question, why does Bichas Koyanim, which is the idea of bracha, be inserted in Shemoneh Esrei, the end of Shemoneh Esrei, right before Sim Shalom? Where does it come together? Why you mix it together, apples and oranges, bracha and tefillah? After effecting a new will in the master of the will, that's the whole davening of Shemoneh Esrei. We're asking Hashem to create a new will. And he's standing, showing the bittul kav the kamamari, top of the last page, Chav Gimel. We're standing with bittul like a servant before his master. Therefore, it's called the tefillah of standing. Al Shem Sha'omed Bali Tanua, because he's standing without movement like a servant. He's bottled to Hashem, that's beyond change. So he also manifests that non-changing nature of standing still. So he's bringing the will down from the source of the will, from the master of the will. But it can sometimes get stuck along the way. And that's what we need to have the bracha to now take that will that we created during Shemoneh Esrei and make sure that it doesn't get stuck. Then there's the need for the idea of a bracha. Calls a yumshach, the fact that all this should be drawn down, but in such a manner that speedily his words should rush down till very much below. Even in a place where there's a need in being careful because of robbers. Even in such a low place, it's coming down where there's actual robbers you're dealing with. In spiritual realms, you don't have to worry about robbers, but you're really talking about the bracha in the most final place. That's why it says, he should protect you, that after you have the bracha of Hashem in what you need the brachas in, so then you need to have protection from robbers, like the Chazal say. So we're seeing that the bracha is something that comes down all the way down here below. After we speak about the brachas, the Birchas Kohanim, which is to bring down the bracha down here, after the Birchas Kohanim, we say Sim Shalom, make peace. Concerning this, it says Hashem did not find a vessel that contains a bracha, only peace. Like it says at the conclusion of Mishnayos of the entire Shas. After we effect through Birchas Kohanim, the Hashpah should be drawn down here below. Then there's a need for the idea of peace. That's the vessel, so you should be able to receive and accept Hashpah. Just like at the conclusion of Birchas Kohanim itself, we also conclude with peace. He shall place you peace. Because after you draw down the bracha, now you need to have the vessel that can contain in it the bracha. That's the idea of peace, like it was mentioned before. That's why we say sim shalom after Birchas Kohanim. Through this comes down to every single Jew and everything that's necessary to him, and children, and life, and in sustenance, and in all of these, not just in the sustenance, but also in children, and also in life, in a way, in a comfortable manner. Like it says, and you shall respond to me in the broadness. Yudke should respond to me until we reach the level that my cup overflows. We're talking about the cup of David, the King Mashiach, that explains that was an unbelievably huge cup. As it will be in the coming of Mashiach. He will come and redeem us and lead us upright to our land and speedily.